Welcome to HISD TV at home. My name is Jennifer ONeal. I'm a math and science teacher development specialist here in the district. Before we get started with today's learning, I want to make sure there's a few things that you have. I want to make sure you have something to write with and something to write on. That can consist of a whiteboard, paper, a math notebook, or a dry erase marker, a marker, a pencil, or a pen, or you can have a combination of either. Now, let's get ready to dive into today's learning. Now, we're going to begin with an engage. Our engage for today is our scenarios. We have a coach who wants to know how many of each type of balls he has in his closet. Here are the balls in his closet. What kind of balls do you notice? I'll give you about 30 seconds. Yes, you're correct. I noticed a basketball, I noticed a soccer, tennis, and a baseball. He has tons of balls. I want you guys to think about this question or think about these few questions. How can coach organize the type of balls? What questions could you ask after you organize this information? So we're going to use the information that we have to organize the balls, and we're also going to answer some questions, okay? Let's continue. Let's learn. Our focus for today is I can organize data in graphs and solve problems related to the graph. Let's go over a few vocabulary words you're going to hear throughout today's learning. I'm going to say the word, and after I say the word, I want you to say it with me. Pictograph. Pictograph. Good job. A pictograph is a graph that uses pictures to show comparisons between categories of data. Key. Key. Good job. Key is the part of a graph that tells the value of each picture or symbol. Bar graph. Bar graph. Good job. A bar graph that uses bars to show comparisons between categories of data. Let's look at the balls coach has again. One way we could organize these balls is by creating a pictograph. What are some things we need to remember when we create a pictograph? How should we get started? I want you to think about those two questions. Before we go into creating our pictograph, let's review what some graphs are about. So now let's begin. We have our favorite sandwich. So if we took a survey of our favorite sandwiches, we know that we could create a pictograph or also a bar graph. Both of these graphs that show the same data. The pictograph uses pictures to show the data, and the bar graph uses bars to show the data. Let's go over the pictograph first. It is a favorite sandwich pictograph. We have cheese, ham, and tuna. Each of the smiley faces stand for one student. We have two students that like cheese sandwiches. We have one student that likes ham sandwiches. We have three students that like tuna sandwiches. Now we look at the same data on a bar graph. On a bar graph at the bottom, we have this line that represents a 0, this line that represents 1, this line represents 2, this line represents 3, this line represents 4, this line represents 5, and this line represents 6. So we had two students that like cheese sandwiches, we had one student that like ham sandwiches, and we had three students that like tuna sandwiches. So we're using the same information, but we are recording it on two different graphs. We have a pictograph here and a bar graph here. As we move over here, in these two graphs above, we have intervals that are greater than 1. So now we took a survey on books read. So now we have a bar graph. We have Alex, Brad, and Cara. This line here represents 0. This line represents 3. This line represents 6. This line represents 9. This line represents 12, and this line represents 15, and the very last line represents 18. We are counting in intervals of 3. So we're counting by 3. So when we look at Alex, he read 12 books. Brad read 3. Kara read 15 books. Wow. That's the number of books, and then we have who read the number of books. Now we want to take that same information and we want to create a pictograph. We still have Alex, Brad, and Kara. Now, each of the smiley faces this time are represented by 3. So we're counting by 3 on this pictograph instead of 1 like we did earlier. So now we have 3, 6, 9, 12. Alex read 12 books, just like he did and just like it was represented on the pictograph. Brad read only 3 books. We only have 1 smiley face because remember, our smiley faces represent 3. Kara read 3, 6, 9, 12, 15 books. Because remember, we're counting by 3 because each smiley face is represented by 3 books. So we're using the same information, but we represent it using a pictograph, and we also represent it using a bar graph. Now here we want to organize Coach's balls by creating a pictograph. So now we're going to start with how many basketballs do we have? Now, each picture stands for 1 ball. So we're going to be counting by 1 on this picture. Let's begin. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Wow, we have 7 basketballs. So in that pile, he had 7 basketballs. Now, let's count the soccer balls. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Wow, he had 5 soccer balls. And so in that pile, we know he had 5 soccer balls. Now, let's count the tennis balls. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Wow. 6, 7. Wow. He had 7 of them. Let's make sure though. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm sorry, Miss ONeal apologizes. He had 8 tennis balls. Wow, in that pile, he had 8 tennis balls. Now, let's count the baseballs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Wow, hit 7, 6 of those. Miss ONeal said 7. I'm sorry, I'm clicking fast. He had 6. Let's go back over those numbers again. We're counting by 1. Each picture is represented by 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 basketballs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 soccer balls. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 tennis balls. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 baseballs. Wow. Coach had a lot of baseballs. What are some information you see by looking at the pictograph? I'm going to give you about 30 seconds. What is some information you see by looking at the pictograph? Here's some things I noticed by looking at the pictograph. I know Coach has the same amount of basketballs and tennis balls. I know Coach has at least amount of soccer balls. I know Coach has 7 baseballs, 8 basketballs, 8 tennis balls, and 6 soccer balls. What are some questions we could ask about this pictograph? Here is a question we could ask about the graph. Coach created the pictograph below of the balls he had in his supply closet. How many basketballs and baseballs does Coach have in his supply closet? How could we get started answering this question? First, I need to know how many basketballs and baseball Coach has. The key tells me each picture represented one ball. I know Coach has 8 basketballs and 7 baseballs. How many basketballs and baseball does Coach have in his supply closet? Now we need to combine the amount of basketballs and baseballs. 8 basketballs plus 7 baseballs is the same as 15 basketballs and baseballs. 8 plus 7 is equal to 15. Coach has 15 basketballs and baseballs in his supply closet. Let's compare the problem we just completed with another question. Let's look at problem 2. We want to look at how the assessment items are similar and how the assessment items different. Problem 1 is what we just did. Coach created the pictograph below of the balls he had in his supply closet. The question was, how many basketballs and how many baseballs did Coach have in his supply closet? Coach has 15 basketballs and baseballs in his supply closet. Let's look at problem 2. The students in Mrs. Rodriguez's class created the bar graph below to show the favorite subject of each student in her second grade class. We are looking at the bar graph. The bar graph is counting by 1, intervals of 1. We notice that in math, there are 18 students. That is the favorite subject. In reading, there are 11. In science, there are 19 students. In writing, there are 6 students. So now, how many more students chose math as their favorite subject than writing? I want you to think about that before we move on to discuss the similarities and the difference between problem 1 and problem 2. Let's continue. They're similar because both of these are one-step problems. They're also similar because both problems give us a graph to use to solve the problem. They also are different. They're different because problem 1 has a pictograph, problem 2 has a bar graph. Problem 1 asks us to combine 2 types of balls to find a total. Problem 2 wants us to compare the amount of students that chose 2 different subjects. Now it's your turn. I want you to go to Let's Practice. I want you to analyze the bar graph and to use it to answer the following questions. Below is a bar graph that is surveyed for second grade students on their favorite season. I want you to use the graph to answer the following questions. How many students chose winter or summer as their favorite season? Question number 2. How many more students chose summer than fall as their favorite season? I want you to use this bar graph. We have winter, fall, summer, and spring. Our bar graph is counting by the intervals of 1. The numbers are represented by the number of students. On the side is represented by the seasons. We know there are 7 students that like winter, 12 students that like fall, 15 students that like summer, and there are 9 students that like spring. So I want you to use that information in order to complete the 2 questions. A quick review of what we did today. Today we organized data in graphs and we also answered questions related to the graph. If you want to go back and take a picture or pause the video to help you continue your Let's Practice, or you can also reach out to your teacher with any other concerns that you may have. And again, I want to thank you for tuning in to HISD TV. Bye-bye.